things. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you're watching? I know you're reading the book
Inferno. Yeah.
Oh, reading.
I'm listening to the audiobooks.
It's
and
cheating.
Man. No, it's not.
It's cheating.
No, I bought the book too, but I just haven't had time to actually sit and read
Yeah.
it. Like I listen to it while I'm getting ready, while
Yeah.
I drive over here.
Yeah.
It's really good. I don't want to spoil it for you because you haven't
So
read it.
Inferno is a part of the series.
The Robert Langdon
Yeah.
series.
Okay.
Yeah, it's book 4 of the series.
So
and
people who aren't familiar, you have the Angels and Demons.
Angels and Demons Angels and Demons is number in the books. Angels and Demons is number 1, and then it's Da Vinci Code, and it's a lost symbol, and then it's Inferno. In the films, it's Da Vinci Code number 1, Angels and Demons number 2, and then Inferno is going to be the third one. So they just left out the lost symbol.
So it just kind of, I mean, they're jumping around in the movies. I mean, you can kind of tell like when they take place, like they do establish that, right? Like, oh, this is before. This took place before, not really. Or do they stand alone?
Oh, they can stand
movies?
alone.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
it's like that way in the books. Like because it's, I mean, they're adventures. He's going off different places and
kind of like an Indiana Jones style,
but
guy,
with like
religion.
Well, he's also
and
Indiana. Yeah, Indiana Jones is
an architect.
an architect. No, not architect. No, he's
Indiana Jones architect. Yeah, there you go.
No.
An archaeologist.
Archaeologist, yeah. And so Robert Langdon is a professor at Harvard University, and so he teaches like the only class I think in the country about like symbology and religion and how they, marry with each other. And it's actually really cool because when you're reading the books, they go into that and you learn so much stuff.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Cool. Yeah, I remember watching the Da Vinci Code, and when it was super popular. So I was around when that book was so popular. Everybody was reading it, and the movie was about to come out and all that. I mean, that usually happens. The book gets really popular as the movie's about to come out, and there's big controversy with the church and a bunch of things. But I remember watching it. I need to go back and watch those again because they were pretty good. But I think now I'm in another mindset that I can appreciate them or whatever. So. What do you think the books hold up to the movies hold up to the books? What do you think?
They're different. Not so much where like I was like set off by them. They'll change things here and there, but I understand the literary aspect of it, versus what's visually appealing to the audience. So I mean, based on Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code, I mean there were a lot of differences, but I think the moral of it was pretty good.
You like it so far?
I always like the books better, like especially with Angels and Demons. That's the one that I really read all of it. Like the Da Vinci Code, I read half.
Oh, okay.
But the Angels and Demons, Dan Brown is just so descriptive with his scenes. Like you can feel it and see it and imagine it,
and it flows really well. Like I mean, you can go through, and is it one of those where you got to keep going?
Yeah, and the chapters are really short, so it'll be like a page, and that's a chapter
accomplished. Done.
Yeah, you're like, I want to get to chapter like 3. You're like, oh, what? You're on page like 5.
And they're written in third person, right? If I'm not mistaken, because that's the one that I'm listening to right now, where everything. You get to hear like from different characters, not just Robert Langdon's experience.
Right. Okay. So it's not through his perspective. Depending on the chapter, it's that whoever that chapter's about is the person who's narrating it. So like let's say like Angels and Demons, there was an assassin, and so like it'll be his account of like how he like hired a prostitute and like how he felt after he killed somebody and stuff. And then it'll be, like it just goes into the mindset of whoever the chapter's about.
It gives you like the whole perspective of everything that's going on, everything that led to that point or to those actions. And it's really good. Pablo is actually really excited for the movie. We want to go see it on Friday. And I hope that I can finish listening to the whole book by then because, man, I'm excited. This one is pretty frightening, and it's like you said, like there's so many facts that you actually want to Google them and everything.
Like
because
just kind of fact check them, see what's real, see what's not.
His research.
Yeah, and it's in like the first at the beginning before every book it says all these places, all these people. I mean, they're based on real places. Like if you look them up in a map, like they're there, like they're real things. And so I recently in summer I reread Angels and Demons, and I write notes while I'm reading and listening, as you guys can already know. And so I wrote a list of everything that I had questions about, or like paintings that I didn't hear about, or painters and authors and stuff that I didn't know about, or I didn't know too many of. and I would research them and just like just putting like the puzzle together so I can, I mean, I had read the book already, but so I can also like go along with his mindset and go with the knowledge that he has, so I can pretend that I'm trying to like figure out who the murderer is too. I mean, that's really what I like about Dan Brown books.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'm not reading anything. No, I don't. I was listening to actually on a road trip, what was it? A short history
of nearly everything.
Not that one. A People's History of the United States.
We
keep talking about it. We mix up those two books. So those are pretty great books. A Short History of Nearly Everything and A People's History, which is straight up accounts of American history. And it starts at 1492. So it's really cool. I was listening actually now that I had the Hamilton stuff, and actually we can go into that next. The Hamilton stuff and going back, and they're actually talking about some things that he was proposing in real life.
And you're like,
yeah, it's like I know that from the song. But speaking of that, there was a documentary that aired this Friday night and premiered, and it was really awesome. It was the Hamilton documentary. I don't know what it was called.
The Hamilton. Oh man, what was it called?
Hamilton documentary?
Hamilton musical.
That was Hamilton. Oh man, I don't remember.
Anyway, it'll be right here, maybe. And so it was it was on PBS. PBS did this documentary, and I think they started shooting when he was still writing a lot of these songs, like about, he wasn't done with, like, I think he talks about it where it was like 80% he needed to still write. It was going to be a year and a half until he was going to be completed and had to put on the show. And it was just a really cool documentary. What did you think?
It was awesome because I had read the book, so the Hamilton Revolution book, and so there's more information in the book, but to visually see it, we work in a
visual medium, and
where we want to see things as well as after we read stuff. So it was good to see a lot of what came out in the book. So I mean,
it was like a companion to that book, maybe.
Right. And I think for the most part, most everything that came out in the documentary was stuff that was discussed in length, in depth in the book. But to actually see them going out to Valley Forge and doing all that history, they talked about it in the book, but to see them actually there and seeing their reactions, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I only listened to the songs once, but like watching the documentary, man, I was like, oh, he did so much work. All the years, 7 years was it that he said, or 8? Yeah. And like all his struggle, and then the piano, the tuning scene. But I loved how the Obamas embraced him, since the first time that they listened to the song. I was just mesmerized by all the history, and then like the scene where he goes into the museum where I want to say Hamilton was there.
Like a Hamilton museum?
Yeah, the house where he lived at, and he's on his desk. Where
Hamilton Grange.
Yeah, where he would always write, and I'm just like, man, I can imagine like what it feels like.
Was it that was cool, the little
his
portable to-go desk.
His laptop.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
really cool.
insane.
Like, I didn't know, I mean, I'm sure, you'd have to write somewhere, but it was cool. Little drawers, you can put all your stuff in there while you're traveling.
And then the flaws, the that they were all flawed, essentially, you idolize these people, but then they all have their little flaws, and it's like, it's very true. I know.
Yeah, and he says that he's like, no one in this, in our history is perfect.
Nope.
As much as we, Washington helped everybody, he did own slaves.
Yeah.
And I had discussed that with you. I'm like, nope, Hamilton's perfect. You're like, he had an affair. I'm like, okay, true.
Like Mariah Reynolds. I think I texted you back.
Yeah, you're like Mariah Reynolds. I'm like, true. But yeah, so they all had their own thing, but I mean, that's what makes them human, and that's because of them that we're, where we're at now. Sure, but I mean, it's so good.
It was a really good documentary. I was watching it, and unfortunately our PBS station had like really like some clicking in there, but just it was cool because it started from the beginning and it ended the way it ended, and it showed you a lot. Like I haven't seen the show personally, and I know you want to. I've seen parts of the show. Let's say I haven't been there in person. Let's say I have not seen the show in person, and I hope one day to see it. And now, since our first podcast about the Hamilton musical, I've probably listened to the musical probably, I don't even know how many times. I would say, I know. I think more than
proud mom over here, just like
probably more than 20 times. I don't know.
Really?
I have. I listen to it while I work out. Sometimes it pumps you up. It really does.
I know. The last few times that I've ran, like I did that with the soundtrack, and get to go.
Yeah, I lift weights to it. I've ran to it a couple times. I rode my bike to it. That 26 mile.
I picture you in a pink bike.
On a pinky pink. It was
purple.
It was a purple bike. It was a purple bike in the middle of the day
with flowers,
streamers, and all that. It had my stuffed animal. No, but it pumps you up and just it takes you away. I think that's what it is. And every time I listen to it, I hear something new. But what was cool about it, and I mentioned to Melinda, is that I was like, hey, I didn't know this character played this other character, even though you mentioned it.
I did.
But now I know them a lot more. And now when I listen to it, you can hear the difference. And what's cool is they mentioned, and I mentioned to you, they talk about how Jefferson has been gone for so long that everybody's doing hip hop and rap, and he comes in singing jazz, which is really funny. He's not in the loop or whatever. What did I miss?
But still, he's like Secretary of State.
Secretary of State. There you go. Really good documentary. Burn gets me every time, and just seeing her burn those letters. Eliza burning the letters. Yeah. After he publishes these papers to save his political career, I guess, which really didn't work, but he wanted to say that he wasn't corrupt, pretty much. Yeah. He had his receipts paying his sunshine. Sunshine. There you go. But super good. I recommend, if you haven't seen the Hamilton documentary or want to get into it, see what Hamilton is all about. This is a good probably jumping in point. And
we'll have a little link, right, to
remind me.
So you can go watch our first Hamilton podcast. So that's episode 2, I think, of
episode 2
of the KSM show.
Yeah, really cool documentary, really cool musical. Love it. One day, hopefully, to watch it. I think Chicago just started, right? Yeah. Whole new cast, right? Mm-hmm. Or is it everybody brand new?
Yeah, the cast is new. A lot of the music directors, they went from New York to Chicago so that they can, get the same vibes and stuff. So a lot of the musical people will be the same, but the cast is completely
Is there
new.
Still a New York show, or that's no longer a New York?
Oh,
so there's a New York show, and there's also a Chicago
so the Broadway show is still there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so right now the guy who's playing Hamilton, Javier, he is Hispanic, and so I mean he's doing a great job. And actually, the very first time that Obama ever went to go see Hamilton, it was him who was scheduled to play. Yeah, and so he
was his understudy or something. Was the
in theater terms, it's it would be called an understudy, but for them they called him a substitute because he went in there a lot, and so he was there from the beginning when they were first writing it. So a lot of the way that they acted, that Lin-Manuel Miranda acted, was because tips that Javier would input and so they would give and take from each other.
Cool.
And so the very first time that Obama went, it was him that was playing, and so he was expecting, he's like, Lynn's probably gonna tell me that they'll switch days so that he can perform, but Lynn told him, he's so humble. He's like, no, you're gonna be great. You perform, it's your day to perform. Yeah. You're gonna be awesome. And I see that. I'm like, Matt, you don't see that in theater, because theater people are known, stereotyped to be, always want to be the stars and always want to be in front of in the limelight and stuff. But for Lynn, he's just so humble, and he's like, no, this is your shot, don't throw it away. So that was really nice of him.
Yeah, and going back to Lynn, I follow him on Twitter and a couple of other Hamilton fan groups, and you see him tweet super positive, responding to fans, very down to earth, seems like. I think right after you mentioned the piano, somebody asked him immediately after, is your piano tuned now? He's like, nope. Which is super funny. And
what would you do if he tweeted you back? I bet you would frame it.
Dude, I'd cry. Once I told Danny and Mark this a few weeks ago. I dreamt that I met him, and I started crying, and I couldn't get the words out for me to take a picture with him.
Aww.
Yeah, and so I woke up and I was so mad. I'm like, if that ever happened, I'm never gonna be able to take a picture with him.
That's funny.